At the 2026 Munich Security Conference, global leaders declared the post-1945 world order officially dead. We have entered a new era of great power politics. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz and other world leaders confirmed, universal rules are gone, replaced by chaos and the absence of a shared framework. Chancellor Merz stated that the world order, as it has stood for decades, no longer exists. We are now in a period defined by raw power competition. The post-WOT stability has fractured. The structures that once held the global order together are no longer effective in preventing a clash of powers. Ray Dalio warns that we are in stage 6 of the big cycle, a period of great disorder where might makes right and there is a clash of great powers. Stage 6 is the final, most volatile part of the cycle. It is the moment when the existing rules break down and a new order is forged through conflict. International relations differ from domestic ones. In a country, we have laws and police. Globally, there is no higher authority. Power prevails over law, because all governance systems require effective and agreed-upon laws and enforcement, things that simply don't exist effectively between countries. When individual countries have more power than the collectives, the more powerful individual countries rule. This is the reality Dalio describes. Dalio identifies 5 major categories of conflict between nations, each serving as a power struggle that often escalates sequentially. The first is trade and economic wars, conflicts over tariffs, import restrictions, and deliberate attempts to damage an opponent's economy. Second, technology wars. This involves blocking access to key tech and protecting national security through technological superiority. Third, capital wars. These are conflicts imposed through sanctions, asset freezes, and blocking an opponent's access to global financial markets. Fourth, geopolitical wars, conflicts over territory, and alliances resolved through high-pressure negotiations and shifting global alignments. Finally, military wars, the ultimate escalation when other forms of pressure fail to resolve the existential differences between powers. The first 4 kinds of war evolve over time as intense competitions between rival nations until a military war begins. We are seeing this now. This brings us to the prisoner's dilemma. The greatest risk of war emerges when 2 powers have roughly comparable military capabilities. Dalio notes that the US-China conflict over Taiwan represents the most potentially explosive conflict in the world today, high stakes for both, when both parties face an impossible choice, fight or back down. Dalio says this choice is very hard to make because both are costly. The greatest risk of military war is when both parties have military powers that are roughly comparable and existential differences. Rather than pursuing confrontation, Dalio advocates for negotiations that recognize what matters most to both parties. Negotiation is key. Winning means achieving your most important objectives without losing what is essential. To get win-win outcomes, you must know how to trade. Have power, respect power, and use power wisely. This is the foundation of wise management in a broken world order. To understand today, we must look at World War II, the most recent example of the transition from a long peace to a total war. The convergence of 3 cycles, money, internal disorder, and external conflict, created the conditions for the catastrophe of the 1940s. Comparisons between the 1930s and today provide valuable insights into avoiding a similar global conflict with rising powers like China. The global depression following the 1929 crash led almost all countries to turn to more populist and autocratic leaders. Economic pain drove politics. In countries with weaker democratic traditions, this led to extreme fascism. The global depression fueled internal conflicts over wealth. The US and UK, with stronger democratic institutions, moved toward populism, but managed to avoid the extreme autocracy seen elsewhere. Under Hitler, Germany implemented aggressive stimulus programs. Unemployment dropped from 25% in 1933 to 0 by 1938, an economic miracle used for war. The government financed spending by forcing banks to buy bonds. Debt was serviced through company earnings and central bank monetization. Borrowing in one's own currency and increasing debt can be highly productive if put into investments that raise productivity and cash flow. Before military war, nations employ economic weapons. These include asset freezes, capital market restrictions, and embargoes to cripple opponents. The US used an oil embargo and cut off Japan's ships from the Panama Canal, cutting off 80% of Japan's oil, a fatal blow. During war, governments implement comprehensive controls, determining production, rationing goods, and controlling prices and wages. Total state control. Stock markets closed. Credit between non-allied countries vanished. Gold became the only currency for international transactions that was accepted. Protecting wealth in war is hard. Dalio advises, sell out of all debt and buy gold because wars are financed by printing money, devaluing debt. Dalio identifies two certainties about war. One, war will not go as planned, and two, it will be far worse than anyone imagined, every single time. Wars typically occur when existential issues are at stake. They involve unknowns far greater than knowns, making them inherently dangerous. In war, your ability to withstand pain is even more important than your ability to inflict it. It is a contest of endurance and will. Every world power eventually declines. The US, at 245 years old, has proven itself one of the longest-lasting powers, but it now faces its biggest test. The key to avoiding catastrophe is to maintain productivity, keep deficits manageable, and make the system work for the entire population. We must create win-win relationships despite our differences. The alternative is a decline marked by conflict, suffering, and lost opportunity. Every world power has its time in the sun. They all eventually decline. The goal is to do so gracefully, with less trauma. Choice is ours. This summary was compiled from Ray Dalio's article, It's Official, the World Order Has Broken Down. History is watching us. Stay prepared. Thank you for watching this deep dive. Power prevails, but wisdom can prevent catastrophe. Let us use power wisely. Final thought, are we ready? As Dalio says, have power, respect power, and use power wisely. The future of the world order is in our hands today. Goodbye. Silence, background music only as we reflect on the scale of global shifts and the lessons from history's big cycles.